Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today I'll be talking to Princess Sherika. She's based out in Houston, USA. She's a sickle cell advocate, warrior, author, and a nurse student. She's talking to us about her challenges of living with the disease and why she went on to write a book of living of sickle cell in simple terms, and why she's doing everything she can to make sure people living with sickle cell get a better life. Meet Princess Sherika as she discusses her journey and her challenges of living with the pain, sickle cell anemia. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. As I said in my introduction, I have the amazing and beautiful, gorgeous Princess Shakira with me. She is she suffers from chronic illness, but she doesn't let that define her. And I think this is something I'm truly amazed by. You suffer from sickle cell, but you've not let that define you. You've gone on to do nursing. You're in nursing school. You're also an
Yes,
author, and you're doing so much more. You've never let sickle cell stop you, even though you've just been ill a couple of days ago. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
today I'm doing well.
Oh, great.
Today is a good day.
Oh, great. It's always nice. And where are you joining me from?
I am in Houston, Texas, in the United States.
Wonderful. I'm here in London, England, and the weather is snowing. It doesn't snow here often, but it is snowing here today. So everyone is so happy and delighted that we finally get some snow because we're under lockdown. So most people normally would have traveled out abroad to go get some snow, but now the snow came to us, so we're excited about that.
That's
Um,
exciting.
Princess, I am so excited about your story because your story is one of courage, is one of determination, and one that brings joy to so many. You also have a serious illness called sickle cell anemia. Can you tell us a little bit about when you were diagnosed with sickle cell anemia?
So I was a premature baby. So I spent the first 2 years of my life in the hospital. And when I got about 8 months, when the doctors noticed that my legs were swollen, so they decided to test me for sickle cell. At the time, it wasn't mandatory for babies, well, African American babies, to be tested for sickle cell. So they tested me. I was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia (SS), and um, as far as I remember, my mom telling me, I mean, it was really challenging because no one else in my family had it. No, no one else like knew anything about it, and it wasn't much information in the 90s as it is today. So it was really difficult. She really had to educate herself because doctors wasn't even as educated to teach a new mom, hey, your child has sickle cell XYZ. So it was very difficult.
I can imagine. And for yourself, when did you realize that you actually had the pain from sickle cell? Because for those who don't know it, sickle cell is a blood disorder, genetic blood disorder that you get from both parents. And the side effect of sickle cell is that you are in cruciating pain when the blood is trying to go out, down and it forms a crescent shape. And that is when you get the pain. It's treated by drinking lots of water, being stress free, eating healthy, keeping fit,
Mhm.
doing mild exercise. But when the pain hits, I always say to people, it is absolutely very painful. For you, can you remember the first time you felt that pain?
Yes, I was 5 years old, and I it was the summertime. Going to the pool like any other kid, and before this day, I had never been to a pool before.
Mm.
So I didn't know that the water would be cold or hot. I just thought everybody jumping in, I want to join. So I remember getting in the pool, and as soon as I hit the water, it was the worst pain I had ever felt in my entire life. And I think I was more so embarrassed because nobody else was in pain but me. And everybody was looking at me. I ended up having to go to the hospital. That was my first experience, having a crisis. And I would never forget that day. And I had always been scared to get in a pool ever since. Like since then, I occasionally got into a pool, but I'm not one to just jump into a pool. And that was when I knew, like, oh, something is different. Like, why everybody else gets to jump in the pool except for me? And I was very discouraged. I was embarrassed and I was ashamed at a
Mm.
young age. I was like, why do I got to go through this and nobody else? Like, it's not, especially when nobody really talked about it. And of course, everybody is different, but when I was so different, I was like, okay, like what's wrong? And that was my first experience having a sickle cell crisis.
You know, you say that because I also had that experience of it being in a pool, and people always ask me, why can't you swim? I said that experience left no left the bitter taste in my mouth. I can't. I hate to think about it, and I probably that put me off swimming because I always thought if I got in the water, I would have that same experience again. But now, being my 40s, I started swimming lessons again, and I just had to break it and say, you know what, I can't let that define me. That bad experience of that sickle cell pain be my life. And I started swimming lesson and again, which I'm so delighted I started that because it's such a fun exercise to do, but you just have to know how to do it and how to get the body temperature right. You know, going back to your own experience, growing up with sickle cell, how was it in schools and how did you manage to overcome it? And did your parents or your mom, did she ever treat you differently from other kids in your family?
Growing up, I would notice when my eyes would turn yellow. I would notice because nobody else's eyes looked like mine, and kids were mean. They used to call me alien, you know, they would talk about me, and I just didn't understand why because I was nice, you know, I wanted to have friends, and it was just, it really wasn't good until I learned how to use my words and tell people, hey, just because it's not contagious, for one. Two, it's like I'm just like everybody else. And my mom, I wouldn't say she treated me different. I would say she felt bad because it was nothing that she could physically do. Of course, she can monitor me, you know, make sure I didn't, you know, do anything extraneous or you know, I always had a jacket on or, you know, I took my time, but she would always feel bad that my brother didn't have to go through this or, you know, my cousin, they didn't have to go through this. And like I was in and out of the hospital and we practically lived there.
Mm.
Um, Out here, it's a place in the hospital on the children's side. It's called the Ronald McDonald House for like parents of children or siblings of children that spend like a long time in hospital. They have like their own wing that they can, you know, get refreshed, you know, sleep in a full size bed instead of those hospital couches or take a shower, you know, just have some chill time like away from the kids. And just that was really really wasn't fun until I got older and I learned how to manage it myself. And then I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I wanted to do. I always found out later that I should not do what I want to do because I always ended up in the hospital. But I had fun and I just knew like I'm gonna do this. I might end up in the hospital, but oh well. And that was just like how it was until I got about 15. I started having like these really, really bad headaches. And I'm not talking about like a normal migraine or a normal headache. It was to the point to where like I had to go into the closet because it just had to be super duper dark. And I had my first stroke. Like I didn't know like I was having many strokes at the time. That was where those headaches were coming from. And then when I had my first stroke, that's when it like really just like slowed me down. I missed out on like so much because when I was 15, I was a teenager. Two, it was like I felt like I was too young to be going through that. I was just like, why do I have to go? And I was like so angry, like, why do I have to go through this? Like, I'm nice to people. I'm very friendly. I was very smart. You know, I made all A's and B's on the honor roll. And why did I have a stroke? It just came out of nowhere. Like, doctors still don't know, like, what caused me to have that. And that was when I was like, okay, I have to do something because I don't want to be a slave to this hospital bed every day. So I started just making like little minor changes, like doing like some exercise and drinking more water because at first I wasn't drinking a lot of water. I like juice and soda and all those things, but I didn't know that that had a huge impact on my body. I mean, I'm young, like who wants to drink water all the time?
Yes.
But now I make sure I drink like plenty of water. But that was my experience, you know, leading up until I went to college. I
What
was
do you
just,
call that your aha moment, the thing that really got you, the pain that really got you, and you realize that you can't be in this pain for a very long time. You can't live like this. You can't let
yeah.
the whole sickle or the whole problems of it control your body. You need to also
Mhm.
do the research for yourself to see what can you do to help yourself to get better. So when did you start taking drastic steps within your life to say, after having this stroke of the brain, when did you start taking steps to make yourself, better? What did you do to help yourself?
Okay, like for real, take the steps when I was 19. I say 19 because I had actually went off to college. I wasn't like at home with my mom.
Okay.
And because I wasn't at home, I had to make my own doctor's appointments. I had to find my own doctor. I had to make sure my prescriptions was filled and all those things. I'm just like, I never had to do that. Like my mom handled all that. When I went to the hospital, I didn't need to know what blood type I was. I didn't need to remember, when I was last transfused or who my hematologist was. I didn't have to know that since my mom knew. So when I had to know everything myself, I was just like, no, this is just a lie. And I was like, I need to do whatever I have to do to keep me away from here. Because who wants to go to the hospital? I don't know nobody that just wants to be like, okay, I'm going to go to the hospital today and have all these needles and tubes, going in and out of them. So when I was 19, I started making like minor changes in like my diet. And so eventually, like now that I'm 27, I'm fully vegan. I don't eat no like processed food, no sugar, no artificial cheese, none of that. Like I just plant-based, like all fruits and vegetables. And that has made a huge significance. And, my pain crisis, like all of my other like health problems have like decreased significantly since I stopped eating meat completely, and the sugar and all of that stuff. I left that alone. And I would say from about maybe 25 to about like 27 now, it's been like a decline in my hospital visits. So I would say 19 is when I started. Like I would like only drink soda like once a week.
Yes.
Or, I would only eat out like once a month. And like those things made like big changes versus somebody that was eating out like every day. Like I can't do that because my body can't keep up with that. And I'm like, I'm tired of this because the medicine, it helped, but at the same time, it was like, I felt like it just kept me like in the middle. I didn't make no progress, but I didn't make like any like decline. I was just like in the middle, and I didn't like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, nah, this isn't the life that I want.
No, I love that you said that about the medicine. Yeah, the medicine keeps you well, takes you out of hospital. I mean, keeps you pain at bay. But it doesn't make you better in the second sense. And then you start hallucinating, you start having irritable bowel syndrome because of all the tablets and painkillers one's been taking. You start
Yeah.
feeling nauseous, you start getting itchiness. So I really understand where you're coming from when you say the pain medicine does help, but it just keeps you in between. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that because a lot of us don't think about it. We don't realize that it's very important when you live with sickle cell and when you live with any kind of chronic illness. It's very important to look into your diet as well to understand what is going into your body, because that could also be causing you pain. It could also be causing your body, your sickle cell, to react more and
Mm-hmm.
more aggressive. Like myself, yes, I do eat meat, but I also eat everything in a day. I don't eat overly. I know my body actually speaks to me. It says, "If
Mm-hmm.
I can do this," and you have to also listen. So when you started listening to your body at 19, where did you find the courage in you to become, to go into nursing school, to start doing that? And how difficult was it to balance that and living on your own and being a sickle cell warrior as well?
So when I was 19, I nobody knew I had sickle cell except for like my mom and like my close knit family. So
Mm.
nobody I went to high school with, like nobody knew. So I got to college and they would have like blood drives. And I'm like, I need that blood, like, because at the time I was on chronic transfusions. Like every 6 weeks, I was getting a transfusion. And I'm like, yes. And I got so upset that it was only like maybe two or three people that was donating. I'm like, what? Because it takes 75 donors just for one sickle cell patient. And I was like, ain't no way. Like, y'all can do better. And they was like, well, why is it so important to you? I said, because I have sickle cell. And they was just like, what? And I was like kind of nervous because I didn't know how people would react.
Mm.
And somebody asked me that I have HIV or something like that. I'm like, how? Just crazy stuff. And so I decided to speak up about it because if I can educate people and they're like, okay, well, if they can see how this could directly affect someone, people will be more inclined to donate. So I started doing like blood drives, and that made me feel better because more people knew about it and they were more accepting to it. I didn't feel like I was an alien. I didn't feel like, I was alone.
Mm.
and I just found my voice. And I had a mistreatment at a hospital one time, and that was really just kicked things into gear because this doctor, he was just very arrogant. He didn't have a lot of bedside manner, and he just didn't understand. And I'm just like, sir, I don't want to be here. Like, you can just let me go home. But I want you to understand, like, I don't come here because I need pain medicine. Obviously, there's something else going on that I cannot see. So you need to do the lab work, do your job, do what you signed up to do. Obviously, I need help. And I didn't understand what health literacy was, and I didn't understand what health equity was. And that visit made me like do my own research. I'm like, this should not have happened. And I started posting about it online, and then I found all these other people that was going through the same thing. I'm like, oh no, we're gonna fix this. And ever since then, that just inspired me to become an advocate. And it also inspired me to become a nurse because I feel like the patient care is different when you can directly relate to a patient. We might not go through the same thing, but I know what it's like being poked 5 different times because they can't find an IV, or they can't find a good vein for an IV, or just being in the hospital in general. And I felt like if I can just get into this system, like I can kind of like help, or be like the liaison between like the patient and like the doctor and like healthcare, because it can be very scary to somebody who don't know what they're doing. And if you don't know the right questions to ask, they're not going to be able to help you. So that was really like important. I'm still working on it. Trying to teach health equity and health literacy, because that's really, really important, to know what to ask and what doctors are supposed to do, like your just basic rights as a patient, and what they're not supposed to do. And yeah, like that was
Speaking of
the start
um,
of it.
speaking of that, Princess, do you also teach the insurance side as well? Because I know with
Yes.
chronic illness, it's also a problem with, especially in America, where you have to where you have to be insured to look after.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that a lot of people shy away from going to hospital because of the huge bill that comes with it. Like one of the things I always think to myself, I was like, oh my goodness, if I lived in the United States, I would have to pay so much just to be seen or be looked after. How do you teach? How do you teach, especially with nursing? Do you incorporate that when you advocate to patients to let them know what are the options available to them, so that if they are ever sick or ever in pain, they have access to immediate hospital care and what to do to gain those access to healthcare?
Yes. So yeah, in America, like you gotta have insurance, or they basically treat you like trash, for a lack of better words. But yeah, like even if you don't have insurance, they're still supposed to treat you regardless if you have insurance or not. And I help them find different insurance agencies that will work with them, because if you have a pre-existing condition,
Mm.
your deductible is higher
Yes.
for whatever reason. So there's government insurance, and then there's other private healthcare. Not everybody in my position are able to afford private healthcare because the deductible is so high. So with government insurance, it's like pulling tooth and nail. It's like it's a hit or miss. You have to prove so much that, oh well, I need health insurance because I have this disease. And I'm just like, what I don't understand about American government healthcare is if you've had a disease up until you're 18 is when they like kick you off of children Medicaid. I'm like, so do people think the disease stopped when they turn 18? It just miraculously go away?
Mm.
So there's not I
Like
guess
it's
a universal transition plan for, children's Medicaid to adult Medicaid. So that's kind of like what I'm working on. And, it's a really big task. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to make it as easy as possible, because that also discourages people from going to the hospital. You could be in crisis for like months, and by the time you finally go, it can be fatal. Like, it's too late.
yeah.
So I don't want that to happen like anymore. So I'm trying to if someone, comes to me, like I try to help that individual person, but I'm trying to figure out how to help everybody so that, at least they know like, hey, this is what I can do so that I can get help. Because there's places out there, but it's not promoted. It's not like easy accessible as they try to make it seem. Like you really have to call like 5 different people just to get one number to get help. So I'm trying to work on that.
And also make it baby language as well, because I think some of the difficulties people find is their reading ability, because the insurance makes it sometimes so complicated. They give you forms of 60 pages, and by the time you get
Hmm.
the first 2 pages you're done, you're like, I don't even know what I'm signing. Princess, one of the key things, you are not an author. You went on to write a book. Why did you write this book? And tell us about your beautiful book.
Okay, so I wrote this book because I used to volunteer at a hospital with kids, and they would always ask me, "Hey, what is sickle cell?" And I would always give them the textbook definition, because I have a background in science, and they're like, "What?" They were like, "Well, you didn't answer my question because I still don't know what it is." So I was at work, and I got a piece of. I was working at this store called Macy's, and I got some receipt paper, and I literally wrote it on the back of a receipt paper, and this is um this is a book. I don't know if you can see it.
Um,
This is the
yeah.
most broken down way that I can teach what sickle cell is. And I'm just going to go to that one part just to give you the example.
It's so funny because I was just asking you about breaking things into baby languages like the insurance, and your book is very broken down that anyone would, just by looking at it and reading the few pages, understand simple words what sickle cell is. Yeah, read your page. I love that. I love what you've done. It's so beautiful. Thank you for doing this. Go
It
on.
says, "Mommy says I have something called sickle cell, and sometimes my blood cells turn into weird shape, causing my body to hurt." And in the book, I give the example of regular blood cells and my blood cells. And I use like different words because words have meaning. I didn't want to say, weird blood cells or something with like negative, because you say regular blood cells and my blood cells, because just because they're not regular does not mean that there's something wrong with you. And that was the most important thing, because I know as a kid, like, I was very discouraged because it was no books like this, it was no kids around me that had this disease, so I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. And I wanted to give back the power of sickle cell. Like, just because you have sickle cell, you go through so much pain before the age of 13 than some people in their entire life. So that makes you more powerful than ever. And I just really want them to be encouraged and be like, yes, just because I have sickle cell does not make me inadequate or I'm unable to do whatever I want to do. So that was the reason for this book, is because I wanted them to have representation, and I also didn't want them to be scared of, oh, I have this disease. Oh well, okay, what's next?
That is amazing. Are you going to write more parts into the book? Because there's so many things about living with sickle cell. There's the dating part, there's going to school part, there's just living
Yes.
life, there's going out with your friends, there's jumping in a pool, for example. Are you going to add more series to your book? Because I think that's a really handy book for many people out there, and not just people with sickle cell, but it's also people who have a chronic illness. How to talk to your kids when they have an unusual illness.
Yes, I actually have an activity book that goes along with it.
Okay.
So this is going to be a whole. So she's a superhero. She's the first one. It's going to be like a whole, array of different superheroes and different kids that's dealing with different like ailments. So there's going to be, hopefully, I have another book coming out this year. It's going to be about autism, and then like each year I'm going to come up with like another book so that more and more kids will feel encouraged and empowered. So yeah, I do plan on creating a whole superhero team, a whole superhero universe
I love
one day.
that. Well, what is your hope for sickle cell patient in 2021, especially with the light of the pandemic? I think that slowed a lot of progress made, because obviously a lot of focus had to turn to the pandemic and saving the world from this COVID-19. But at the same time, we still do not want to forget people like ourselves living with sickle cell, and people being born diagnosed recently with sickle cell, dealing with this incredible challenge. What would be your hope for people with sickle cell?
So what I want people with sickle cell to understand is we was here before this pandemic. We're gonna be here like after the pandemic is over, and I want people with sickle cell to, take more initiative, especially as adults, to educate themselves so they can be more prepared for anything that can happen. And I want people to, because it's easy for people to post online about, oh, this system is XYZ. But if you're not doing anything to fix it, then what are you complaining about it for? I mean, even if it's just joining a conference or, joining a group or reading a book, like there's something that we all can do. Like we all can ignite the change that we want to see. My mission is to change the narrative of what sickle cell is. Like I have sickle cell SS. I'm not, the typical you Google image of what sickle cell looks like. Sickle cell looks like any and everything. And our genotypes does not separate us. Just because someone SS or SC or thalassemia, we're all the same. And we can do whatever we put our minds to. Sickle cell is not gonna defeat us. It's hard, but it's okay. We got this.
Well, look at you. Look at you still standing, and you've got many, many more things to achieve. I wish you good luck with the nursing degree as you go along, and I'm sure you do extremely well. I also wish you good luck with the book you're writing. Princess Sherika, I am super delighted I could say the name because I was so nervous about that, but I got that right. Thank you so much for joining Painless Universal Conversation, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.